Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be building a comprehensive backend project in Go programming language from scratch. It is going to be a file upload system. It is going to be packed with a lot of functionalities. Users will be able to log in, register, log out, see their profile. Also they will be able to upload files, get all the files that they have uploaded, get a specific file of theirs, then also delete a file that they have currently. So we'll be using a lot of dependencies throughout this project. The main dependency is going to be Gin, which is going to be our backend framework. We'll be using Gin because it is the most popular backend framework out there, followed by Fiber. We'll be using also SQLite as our database, as our local database, but you can switch to any other database that you like, that you prefer, like MongoDB, PostgreSQL, MySQL, whatever. Just you have to change a couple of lines of code and then you'll be good to go. So there is not going to be very problematic stuff related to database. Also, we'll be using GORM as our ORM, object relational mapping. It basically makes working with database very easy. Also, we'll be using other couple of dependencies like go.env for working with environment variables and JWT for JWT authentication. But those are the tiny libraries. We'll be talking about them later on as we go. As my code editor or IDE, I'll be using Visual Studio Code Editor, but you can choose any other code editor that you are comfortable working with, like Goland, Sublime Text, Atom, Vim, or whatever you have out there. So first things first, let's create a module for our project. The common naming convention for your modules is to say github.com, then specify your username, then the repository name under which this project is going to be pushed, or library. But I don't like that approach. I like to specify just the name of the project that I'm working in. So I will call it file upload system. So yeah, that's good to go. And let's clear that and move on to our main.go file. Main.go package main. Then let's spin up our Gin application real quick here. So app will be gin.default, and let's say go mode tidy to install that. All right, now let's say app.run, then fmts printf colon, then specify my port here. The port is going to come from my environment variables, so port is going to be os get env, my port. But before accessing environment variables, we have to load all the environment variables, which is done using go.env.load. So let's install that as well, go mod tidy. Okay, now we have go.env as well. Let's create our environment .env file and specify our port, which is going to be 8080. And let's try to now run our file. It should be running smoothly without any errors. Yeah, it is running, as you can see here. Let's stop that. And now what I want to do, I want to create my routes. I want to sort of register all my routes. So for that, I'm going to create this routes folder. In this tutorial, I'll be following all the best practices. So I will organize my file and folder structure in a nice, neat way. So routes, then controllers, then utils, where I'll be writing some utility functions for my application. Then also models for individual models in my app. So inside of routes, let's create this init.go file. And here I will have only one function that is called set up routes, something like that. Then here I'll accept my application, which is going to be of type gin.engine, like this. Then I'll create my router, the core router. It is going to be app.group, then say API here, because this is going to be API related stuff. All right, let's save that and go back to our main.go. Here let's say routes dot setup routes and pass our app here. And here let's create two separate router files for my authentication routes, my auth routes, and separately for my file routes as well, those two routes will be separate. I'm creating them separately because I want to make it organized. So auth.routes.go, then file.routes.go. all right, let's say routes package. Here I can close file.routes because I'll not be working on file mechanism quite yet. I'll first of all implement my authentication, user authentication, then move on to my file upload system. So package main, package routes here as well. Then func auth routes. Here I'll accept my router, which is going to be of type gin dot router group like this. Then let's create my auth router here as well, which is going to be router dot group. I have misspelled that. Router like this. Router dot group and slash auth is going to be my path here. Alright, now let's say auth routes here and specify my router. Alright, this init go file is finished. Let's close that. And now what I want to do, I want to create a separate controller file for my routes. auth.controllers.go. And here for my auth controllers, I will basically have 4 functions. The first one is for logging in. So login, handle login rather, handle login. I'll accept here context from gin.context. Then similarly, I'll have register controller handle register, c gin.context, then handle logout, gin.context, then finally get user, c gin.context like this. And now let's register all those controllers here. So I'll say auth router dot, let's put it here. First one, login, is going to be post method and to this pass. Then controller is going to be controllers dot handle login like this. Let me close that so you can see that clearly. Then for authentication, I'm going to say, not authentication but registering, I'm going to say post as well, then slash register here, then controllers dot handle controllers dot handle register like this. Then for logout, it is going to be post request as well, so logout, then controllers dot handle logout. And finally for get user, I'm going to say get method and slash me, then controllers dot get user. All right, my routes are now good to go, so I can close that and move on to not my controls, but first things first, I have to set up my database because I don't have database yet. So I'm going to be setting up my database inside of this utils. So let's create db.go file here. All right, here what I want to have, I want to create a separate function which is going to be setting up my database. So setup db, and then here I'll be saying fmt print line, saying that I am connecting to database, connecting to db dot dot dot. After that, I will try to open a database. So let's create a database here because I want to create that database instance in my global scope, because I will be accessing that database instance from my other files as well. So that's the crucial part. var db gorum.db like this. This needs to be a pointer. And then I'll say var error, then db and error equals to gorum.open. Then I have to specify which kind of database that I want to open. So in that case, I'm going to say sqlite.open, then specify my file name for my database. So that's going to be db.sqlite, this simple database, and I have to provide a few configurations for my database. So for that, I can say just gorum.config. I don't want to specify any kind of configurations because defaults are good to go for me. That's why I'm saying just empty config here. If error does not equal to nil, I'm going to say log.fatal_ln failed to open database, like this. All right, after that I want to say fmt print line connected to db successfully. All right, that's that. After that, before this printing statement, I have to register, migrate my different models that I have in my application, but I don't have any kind of models yet, so I'm going to skip that part for now. Now I need to install those two dependencies by saying go mode tidy here, and they are installed now. If I give it some time, yeah, let's clear and exit. Now I want to call this setupdb, so utils.setupdb, like this. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to create my simple user model inside of my models folder. So user.model.go, and here we will learn basically how to create a model for ORM. So we have to basically create a struct, a Golang struct, which is going to represent the model that we want to create. So type user struct, and we have to specify here, we don't have to, but it is recommended for us to specify this model field here, because it is going to add us predefined fields for the standard model in database, like ID field, created add field, updated add field, deleted add field, and so on and so forth. So it is a good idea to just add that line of code instead of writing those 3 or 4 fields manually. Then we want to have a username for our user of type string, and JSON is going to be username in lowercase, then gorm is going to be not null, then unique. This gorm field is going to tell what kind of properties this field has to have. Like, it is not going to be null, not nullable field, and the username is going to be needs to be unique for all the users. Similarly, we want to create our email, so we can copy paste that. This needs to be email, and this one email in uppercase. Then finally we want to have password for the user. This is going to be string as well, JSON password, and gorm not null. We don't want to say unique here because passwords can be same for different users. So that's that. Now I have my model created. I can register that, I can migrate that in my db.go file. So for that I want to say db.automigrate and specify my database models that I have created. So for now I have only one database model, that's why I just want to specify that models.user, like this. If in the future I will create some other models, but I will create that model for my file, that's why I will add that like this, models.file. But for now let's skip that part. Now let's move on to our controllers. In our controllers we have to implement those 4 functions: login, register, logout, and get user. But right now we don't want to get into those functions, because as I said, we will be using token generation from JWT for user authentication. I want to separate those token functionalities in my separate file so that our code is nice and clean. So that's going to be created in utils folder, so token.go. Here I will basically have 2 functions. The first one to generating a token, and second one for validating my token. So it is going to be package utils. And the first things first, I want to create my JWT key, secret key, that I'll be using to generate a token. So JWT token is going to be a byte, like this, byte, then specify your secret key here. So I'm going to say something like super secret key. But for a real project, you want to go with some kind of very secure token here, not token but key. So the first function is generate token. Here I want to accept the user ID. So user models.user. I'll be grabbing user's ID from this user model. Then I will return a string here and potential error. So let's wrap that inside of those parentheses. And the second one is going to be validate token. Validate token. I will accept token str, token string, which I'll be validating, and I want to return a pointer to my claims and a potential error. This claims is going to be a struct. So type claims struct. Then it is going to have, basically you're going to describe here different how can I say, fields that this generated token should be bound to. In our case, we only want to have the user's ID, and later on in our controls we will be fetching that user with a specified ID. So we can only specify here user ID of type string, JSON, then user ID like this, then jwt.registered claims like this. We also have to install that JWT later on. So first of all, let's for now focus on these two functions. In our generate token, I want to generate my claims first of all, which is going to be this claims, and user ID is going to be string convert dot format uint, then uint 64. User's ID in our GORM is going to be of type uint, not just int. So here let's say user.id, then specify this 10, which is going to be our base. Then registered claims is going to be jwt.registered claims, then expires. Let's go ahead and go more tidy here so that it gives us those auto completions. So expires at is gonna be jwt dot new numeric date, then time dot now dot add. Let's import time as well. Time add. We want the expiration expiration date to be set to 1 week only. So we want it to last longer. So for that, I want to say time dot hour multiplied by 24 multiplied by 7. Multiplied by 24 is going to give us a frame of 1 day, and that multiplied by 7 is going to give us 1 week. So that's that. After that, I want to generate my token. Token equals to jwt.new with claims, and specify a method, the algorithm in which I will be generating that token. So the most popular algorithm that we will be using here is jwt.signing method hs256 like this. And let's provide our claims, as you can see here, claims, and that's good to go. Now we can say token dot signed string and provide our jwt secret key here. Alright, that's that. Now let's move on to implementing validate token. In our validate token, we want to get token from jwt.parse with claims, then token string is going to be provided here, then empty claims, then function, callback function, anonymous function, then jwt.token, then it's going to return this empty interface, then a potential error, return jwt key, then nil. Alright, if error does not equal to nil or this token is not valid, I'm going to return an error saying this error that we get here. Otherwise, if that is not the case, if our token is valid, I'm going to say return token dot claims, this claims, and nil here. Alright, those are the two functions that we'll be using in our authentication controllers. Now let's move on to controllers and start implementing our 4 controllers. For our login, handle login, I want to, from the body of the request, I want to get my username and the password. I will be binding that body to this user struct. You'll see what I mean in a second. So models.user, import models, then if error equals to c dot should bind JSON to our user dot error, not just error does not equal to nil. If it could not parse my body successfully to that user, which means that our body is not specified or our body is invalid, we want to return an error message saying the status code of http.bat request, which is 400. Then I want to specify gin.h to format my JSON response. Error field in my JSON is going to be invalid body or something like that. Then I have to say return here so that I exit out of this function. Alright, then I have to check that username and password fields in my user are valid and set, because here in this should bind JSON, that just binds the data in the body to this struct that we provide here. It is not going to validate if some fields are missing or not, because all the fields are optional here. We can provide them, we can also skip them, so we have to check for that part. If username equals to an empty string or user.password equals to an empty string, we want to say the same error message. So let's copy that. Error message will be some fields are missing. Okay, if user provides username and password, we want to fetch from the database a user with this specific username and check if such a user exists. If such a user does not exist, it means that this username is invalid. So var db user models.user, then fetching operation is done like this. We want to access utils.db.where. Let's import that utils, then db where username equals to this. This where is basically a filtering operation here. We filter all the users with this specified username. So I wanna grab the first one from that, and I wanna assign that to my db user here. Then let's get the error from that, and if that error does not equal to nil, I want to say basically the same error message, but the error message is going to be a bit different. I want to say here, let's format that like this: fmt sprintf user with username this not found, and this username is going to be user.username. Also, I have to specify this username here, user.username. Alright, and comma here. If the user with that username in database exists, we want to check if the passwords match. For that, I want to say if error equals to bcrypt dot compare hash and password. Then first of all, I want to provide hashed password, which is db user dot password. I'll be storing my passwords in a hashed version so that it is very safe. Then the password that I want to check for is user.password like this. And if error does not equal to nil, it means that passwords do not match. So I can go ahead and say status unauthorized, which is 401. It means that authorization was not successful, the user is not authorized. I'm gonna say here invalid password. Okay, if it passes all those guard checks successfully, I want to generate an access token for the user. So access token and potential error is gonna be my utils. Is that potential error? Yeah, utils. Yeah, I can get rid of that error because I'm sure that that is not going to be resulting in an error, because I have already added those guard checks. I'm going to say utils.generate token, then provide my user. User is going to be this db user. Alright, I don't want to specify this user because in this user the user ID is set to nil or whatever you want to call that, and our token relies on the user ID to generate that token. So if you were to pass just user here, it would result in an error. So that's why we want to give it our db user, which has all the fields set. Then what I want to do, I want to set this access token as my cookie to my request. So for that, I'm going to say set cookie, and I need to provide a couple of different arguments here. The first one is the name of my cookie. The cookie name is going to be access token. Then the value of that is going to be this access token that I have generated. Then max age is going to be 60 times by 60 times by 24 times by 7. This max age should be provided in seconds. Yeah, that's why I'm multiplying that by 60 to get minutes, then 61 more time to get hours, then 24 to get days, and 7 to get weeks. Pay attention that we have provided here 1 week. That's why we have to, this max age should match this stuff here as well. Alright, after that, what I want to provide is the path. Path is going to be just slash. Then domain is going to be localhost because we'll be testing that in our local host. Then secure, we can say false for that in this case, because if we want to set that to be true, we want to do some extra work for our cookies to be working in our application, but I don't want to do that right now, so we can leave them as false, those both fields. But for real applications, you can consider setting them to true for your cookies to be much more secure. So as a result, here I want to finally say a success message. So status is going to be success, status, what was that? Status okay. Then gene.age, then message is gonna be logged in successfully, to say that the user has logged in successfully. Then I want to also pass my access token that I have generated. So access token, maybe the user that is building the front end for this simple project is going to need that access token in their application. For that, I'm passing that access token as well. But in our case, we'll be testing that application in Postman, and we will not need that access token. Alright, next controller is handle register. In handle register, we want to create new instance of the user in my database. For that, I have to accept 3 fields from the user: the username, email, and password. So I'll be doing the similar stuff as here. So let's copy that from here and paste that to my register controller. Alright, that is going to be exactly the same, and I have to check if my those 2 fields and plus my email is set. So or user.email equals to an empty string, I will say that error message. Otherwise, I want to check if the user with that username or with that email already exists in my database. If that is the case, I don't want to recreate that user, because as I said, here my username and email fields should be unique here. That's why I have to make sure that the user with those fields does not exist in my database. So for that, I can say var existing user equals to models.user, and I will try to fetch that from my database. If error equals to utils.db.where, then username equals to this, and or email equals to this. Then let's provide my username and email. User.username, then user.email dot first to my existing user, like this. existing user. Then I want to get error from that. This line is getting too long. That's why let's put that error in this new variable like this. If error does not equal to nil, or rather if error equals to nil, if my error equals to nil, then it means that this function here managed to successfully fetch a user with this username and this email. And that is the problem for us. If the database could find a user with those specific fields, we want to say an error here, because the uniqueness would break then. So here we want to return that error message, status by request, and let's say here username or email already exists, like that. Then I want to say return as well. If the uniqueness guard check passed successfully, I want to, first things first, hash my password. So for that I want to say hashed password, then error equals to what? Bcrypt dot generate from password. The password that I want to provide is my user dot password. Then the cost is gonna be what? Bcrypt dot default cost. I want to go with default here. If my error does not equal to nil, I want to say that error message, and the status is going to be internal server error, because this error occurred not because users typed in something wrong or invalid, but something actually went wrong on our side. Our code just broke. That's why we have to provide internal server error, which is this 500 code. You could also provide here just 500 in a simple way, but it is good practice to use those constants. So internal server error, and the message is going to be error hashing password. Alright, if we manage to hash the password successfully, I want to assign the password field of my user to be this hashed password. So that can be simply done by this assign operation, hashed password, like this. I'm turning here this into string because hashed password is a slice of bytes. Yeah, if error equals to utils.db.create my user, and error, if that error does not equal to nil, I want to say that error message, and here it should be internal server error as well, because we could not create that user in our database, but everything that the user has passed to us, everything was correct. It was not malwared or invalid. So internal server error makes more sense here, and the message is going to be failed to create user. Then if that is not the case, it means that we managed to create a user in our database successfully, and we can just return c.json, and status code is going to be created. This created is 201, and it means that something on the server has been created. In our case, we have created a new user. That's why we are passing that status created here to inform the user that something has been created on the server side. And as a JSON, I want to pass my user that just has been created. And in terms of this handle logout function, that is going to be very straightforward compared to handle register and handle logout functions. I just have to clear that cookie that I have set in my login. So I can basically copy those lines of code and paste that here. So I want to set that to be an empty string, my access token, and expiration date, I want to set it to be -1, which basically deletes this cookie. Then I want to say c.json with status code of OK, then gin.h message logged out successfully. Alright, For our get user, we want to basically get the current user by that ID that we have generated in our token. Then we want to fetch the user with that specific ID from the database and return that to the user. But I don't want to implement that functionality of getting the user ID from the token, because I want to move that to utility as well, because I'll be using that functionality quite a lot of times in my file controllers as well. That's why it makes much more sense for us to create it separately. So I will be doing that as a middleware. So I don't have a middleware folder. Let's create one middleware. It is going to be auth.middleware.go. Then this function, this middleware, is going to be called auth required middleware. This middleware is going to basically check if that cookie is set or not. If that cookie is not set, it is going to return an error message saying that the user is not authorized. And if that is not the case, it will pass the user ID from that token and set it to my request, which can be used later on by my controllers. You'll see what I mean in a second as I approach writing this middleware. And you may ask how I'll be using this middleware. I'll be adding that middleware to my routes that require the user to be authenticated. For example, logout and fetch my profile, and also some file related routes. You'll see that in a second, but let's go ahead and implement this auth required middleware. I want to get my access token and this error from my, also I need to accept C here, which is going to be c.context, and I want to get that from this C, then cookie, to get that cookie with that name. So access token, then if error does not equal to nil, I want to say c.abort with status and JSON. This is going to abort this request chain. You'll see what I mean in a second, because I'll be adding that middleware.auth required here, because I want this logout route to be auth required, this me function as well. So what Jin is going to basically do here, it is first of all going to call this first middleware here, first route. Then after that is going to call this one here. If you hover over this post, you will see that it accepts a list of different handlers, and we are basically setting our middleware to be the first handler here. And if we say abort with status and JSON, it is not going to go ahead to other controllers, other handlers in this chain. So abort with status, the status is going to be http.unauthorized. Then gin.age error, no access token provided, like this, and return. Then I want to get my claims and error from utils.validate token. That is returning claims and error, as you can see here. Then I want to pass my access token here, this access token. Then if error does not equal to nil, I want to say basically abort with status, the same stuff as here, so I can copy that. And here the message is gonna be just invalid token, because we failed to validate that token inside of this utility function. So yeah, the status can stay the same. Then if it fetched that successfully, I wanna set this user's ID in my request, which can be done using this set function. So user ID is going to be claims.user_id, like so. Then I want to call c.next to move on to the next handler in my chain, so which is this one. Alright, that's that for our middleware. Also, I want to add that middleware to this get user, because get user route expects the user to be logged in. So we have to check that here as well. But login and register routes do not require us to be logged in, because they basically do the logging in functionality by themselves. So middleware auth required. If you were to add that auth required middleware to both register and login, you would not be able to log in for eternity. Yeah, hope that makes sense. And let's move on to our controllers and implement the last controller or handler that we have left here. Here we want to grab that user ID, this user ID that we have set in our middleware, and we will have this exists boolean here that is going to say if that field exists or not, and get user ID. At this point, this exists field is going to be always be set to true, because we are setting that here for sure, but we can check that for safety reasons as well, just to make sure. But we can be 100% sure here that exists is always set to true, so this if statement will not trigger. But just in case if that is the case, I want to say c.json and http.unauthorized with 401 status code and gin.age error could not get user ID, and say return. Then I wanna, as I said, fetch the user with that user ID. So if error equals to utils.db.find my user, and provide the primary key of my user model. So the primary key is by default set to user ID, so let's specify user ID here and get error field from that. And if that error does not equal to nil, I want to say what? I want to say c.json internal server error, then gin.age as always error could not fetch user, and say return. If I successfully manage to fetch the current user's profile, I just want to return that the status code of 200 and say my user here. Alright, that's alright. This is the full implementation of my auth controllers, which is more than 100 lines of code. At this point, I think we can run this program and test it out if the authentication functionality is going to work fine or not. So let's open up the terminal and go run that, and fingers crossed, we hope that this is not going to result in an error. So let's run, and yeah, it is running successfully, as you can see here. Now I want to open up my Postman to check to see if those routes are working fine. So here I have my Postman open. What I want to do, I want to create a blank collection for my authentication. So let's rename that to auth and create a new request here. I want to call that login. Path is going to be http://localhost 8080. As you can see, it is already giving me hints, because previously when I implemented that project, it remembered that when I was testing that. So API, then auth, then finally this login. The method is going to be post here. I'm specifying that API and auth because here I have specified it as API. Then in my auth route, there you go, we have auth, then login for my route. That's why I'm specifying exactly that stuff. And my port was, as you remember, 8080. So if I try to send this request, it is going to give me an error saying invalid body, because I haven't provided it any kind of body yet. So let's run it, and it says invalid body, which is the totally expected response that we wanted from it. Let's create another request for register. register, then it is going to be post. Then I think I can basically copy paste that, because this needs to be just register instead of login. Then if I try to send it, it is going to give me invalid body error one more time, because I have not provided any body here. As you can see here, the status code is bad request 400, exactly what we have specified here in our controllers. What was it? This bad request, as you can see. Now let's go ahead and create one more for, not one more, but two more for my logout and getting the current user's profile. So let's paste that and change that to logout. I think this will work and say logged out successfully. Yeah, logged out successfully, because here in our logout we are not checking if this cookie exists or not. We are just deleting this cookie anyways, if that exists or it does not exist, and just saying, always saying this status okay, and we are always saying a successful response here. That's why it is going to always give us this logged out successfully message if we are logged in and if we are logged out as well. So the last request for our auth is going to be getting the current user's profile. So the request method is going to be get, because we want to get the current user's profile. We don't want to send some kind of data. So get user, and let's try to send that, and it should give us something like unauthorized, and yeah, no access token provided, because we don't have provided any kind of access token to it. So let's now start by our login. In our login, I want to provide a body to it. So username is gonna be test, and if I do not provide password, it is going to give me a message, something like password is, some fields are missing, not specifically password, but some fields are missing. So let's try to run that, and yeah, some fields are missing, which is totally what we expect. If we provide also password here and give it something like 123, which is a very weak password, I don't recommend you to use that password. If we send it, it is going to give us a user with this username does not exist. So let's try to run that, and yeah, user with username test not found in our database. So we can now be sure that login is working quite well. Now let's test our register endpoint, trying to break this and find some kind of leaks from it. Let's now provide username to be test and run it. We are missing email and password fields, so it should give us, hopefully, some fields are missing message. So some fields are missing. All right, then let's provide email test@gmail.com. Then let's try to run it one more time, and some fields are missing one more time. Then password 123, and hopefully this should now work. It should successfully hash my password and return a user that has been created in our database. So let's run it, and status code is created, as you can see here, 201, and we have as a response our user that has been created. If I zoom in a little bit so you can see it a bit better. So the password, as you can see here, is hashed, so that is absolutely safe. Now let's try to log in to that account, to that newly created account, but the password here was 123, so let's try to specify some other password other than 123, and it should give me invalid password, hopefully. So let's send this, and invalid password. Alright, sweet. If I provide 123, the correct password, it should log me in. So let's try to send that, and as you can see here, logged in successfully, and it specifies my access token here as well, which has been generated successfully. Also, pay attention to my cookies. This access token cookie has been set. And after that, if I now try to get the user, it should basically grab me that user, because I now have that access token set to my cookies. So let's try to send that, and yeah, successfully fetched. I can see my user profile fetched successfully here. Alright, if I try to log out, Okay, now logged out, and try to get the user now. After logging out, it should not give me that user because I have logged out. Yeah, and yeah, no access token provided because that access token has been deleted when I was logging out. Alright, those functionalities, those 4 endpoints are working fine. Those all functions, those all controllers, routes, whatever you want to call that, are working smoothly without any issues. So next up, we can move on to creating our file upload mechanism. So I can close those authentication related stuff, this one as well, and this one. Also main.go file as well. And I can move on to file routes and create, similarly to my auth routes, the file routes function here. File routes, then accept router from here, gin.router group, and create my file router, which is going to be router.group, then this file path, then here file routes.get. No, this should be snake case, not camel case. I wanna now register that in my init file routes, then pass my router. Now let's go ahead and create a separate controller file for my routes, file.controller.go. In my controllers, let's create my package at the top. In my controllers, I wanted to basically have how many? 4 functions similarly to my auth controllers. The first one is going to be upload file, cgin.context. The second one is going to be list files, which is going to list all the available files that I have uploaded in the past. Then get file, to get a specific file with a specific file name, cgin.context as well. Then finally delete file, because logically I'm uploading a file and I need some kind of mechanism to be able to delete an uploaded file, because those files otherwise would stay there forever. Alright, now let's register those controllers in my routes. So file router dot get, no, that should be post, then slash upload. It is going to be controllers dot upload file, like this. Also, I want this to be protected route, so I can say middleware dot auth required. Then for list files, I want to say file router dot get, just slash. Then it is going to be auth required as well. Then controllers dot list files, then file router dot get this specific file with this file name, then middleware dot auth required, controllers dot get file, and finally a final route for deleting a file, so delete and delete file. Alright, I'm done with my routes, so I can close that and move on to my upload file controller. In my upload file controller, I'll be doing a lot of stuff. First of all, let's move on to my auth controllers and grab that from here, because I need my current user that I'm working with. That's why I have to fetch the current user using this. Alright, now that I have my user that I'm currently working with, what I want to do, I want to retrieve the file from the request. So retrieve the file, so file, and error is going to be c.form file, then pass my file. Then if error does not equal to nil, I want to say c.json with status code of bad request, which is 400, then gin h, provide my error message, no file provided, then return, of course. Then if I manage to grab my file from the request successfully, I need to validate if my file is small enough to be able to store in my file system. If the file is too large, I don't want to store them. I want to just refuse to save that file. So validate file size. So file size in megabytes. This file size, file.size, is in bytes. That's why I have to convert them to megabytes to be able to work with it with ease. So for that, I need to say file.size divided by this number times by 11024. This division is going to give me megabytes. Is going to convert bytes to megabytes. If file size megabytes is greater than 100, I'm going to refuse to store that. So JSON HTTP BAT request, not gateway but request, then GIN_H error as always, file too large, limit is 100 megabytes. I'm going to state my limit as well for the user to know what is the largest file size that they can upload. Then if the file's size is valid, what I want to do, I want to try to save that file in my file system. So let's get the file name of this file. So file path.base of this file name, not this file name, but file.file name, like this. Then I want to create my user dir. I will be storing them inside of this let me show you this uploads dir and the user's username. For example, my current user that I have created was this test, and under the test, for example, let's suppose my file's name is file.png or maybe image.png. I'll be storing all the files related to this user inside of their dedicated folder, so that this user's files do not get mixed up with other users' files. That's why I decided to go with this approach. So user dir equals to file path dot join upload dir. Then my user.username, this upload dir should be created at the top. Upload dir is gonna be like this, /uploads const, like this, yeah, because I'll be using that upload dir in basically all those controllers as well. That's why it's a good idea to create that as a constant and in the global scope. But it is going to be also a better idea to store that inside of my environment variables, but I'm not going to do that for now. So user dir is now created. Now what I want to do, I want to try to create my user directory. So if error equals to os.mk dir all, then say error does not equal to nil. Let's provide this user dir, and I need to permission that I want to go with is 0755, which is the default permission for creating a folder. So if that is not the case, I want to say this one, but the status is going to be internal server error, because we did not manage to create that folder, and it is our fault, not the user's fault, because the user might correctly send a file that they wanted to upload. Yeah, and as an error message, I want to say failed to create user directory. Alright, after that I want to create another destination string for my file name. So that is going to be file path.join, then upload dir, then user.username, then my file name, this file name that I have created here from file path.base. If error equals to save uploaded file, then this file, then to my destination, and error does not equal to nil. If it somehow fails to save that uploaded file, I want to return that error message with internal server error status code as well. So failed to upload file, not upload but save a file. Okay, otherwise if it saves that uploaded file successfully in my file system, I want to create a new document in my database which matches exactly that uploaded file. But right now I don't have any model for my file, so let's go ahead and create one next to my user model, file.model.go. So package models here and type file struct and gorm.model as in my user model. I already explained that to you, this field. Then my file will have the user ID, the ID of the user that this file belongs to. It is going to be of type uint, because as I said, user's ID is stored as unsigned integer in my database. So JSON is going to be this snake case user ID, then gorm will be not null. Alright, then pass is going to be string JSON pass, then gorm will be not null and also unique. Then file name string JSON pass gorm just not null, because different users might accidentally upload different files with the same name. So if we say here unique, it would be very problematic, because the first test user might upload a file with file name something like image.png, and the second user, let's call it Alex, with username Alex, might also upload a file with image.png, and we should be able to store that quite well. So that's why we removed that unique field from there, and should be file name, not pass. Then finally we want to store the size of this file. It is going to be of type int64, and it is going to be stored in bytes. So JSON size gorm not null, like this. It is going to be stored in bytes. I'm not going to store that in megabytes because I want to keep the precision. For example, let's assume the size of the file that was uploaded is 3.5 megabytes, and if we try to store that in megabytes, it would be truncated to just 3, and we are losing precision in that way. That's why we are storing them in bytes. So now that we have file model, here I want to create a new instance of that file model. So file model is going to be models.file, and the user ID is going to be user.id. What else? Then pass is going to be this destination. File name is going to be file name, that secure file name. Then what was that? It was size is going to be file.size, comma here. Then let's try to save that file model in our database. So if error equals to utils.db.create this file model, we need to pass a pointer to that, and error equals to not equals to nil. See, can I copy that? Because I want it to be internal server error as well. So save that, failed to create file instance. Okay, if it was created successfully, I want to return that as my JSON status created, because we are creating a new document one more time by uploading that file. Then gin.h message will be file uploaded successfully. Then file is gonna be not file, let's provide the URL using which they will be able to access that file. So URL is gonna be fmt sprintf. Let's also format that nicely like this, sprintf, then /file /string, then file.file name, like so. Alright, that's that. Now let's move on to the second controller in our list, which is listing all the files that we have. So that is going to be relatively easier compared to uploading file mechanism. So user ID, now let's copy that from here as well. We want to get the current user that we are working with as well, similarly to this upload file. After that, what we want to do is we want to get all the files from our database that has a user ID set to this current user's ID. So files and models.file. This is going to be a slice of files. And if error equals to utils.db.where user ID equals to question mark, then user.id dot find to my files here, then get the error from that. Error equals to does not equal to nil. I want to set, say, internal server error. So let's copy that and specify internal server error. The error message is going to be a bit different. It will be error fetching files. Okay, if we manage to fetch files successfully, I want to just return that in the form of a JSON. So HTTP OK, status OK, then gin, not gin, but just files. Get file is the next controller, next handler that we want to implement. Here we want to grab the user as well. Similarly, as you can see, we are using this user fetching mechanism, user fetching logic quite a bit in our different handlers, and it would be a good idea for us to separate that functionality in some kind of utils folder by creating a separate file for that as well. But for this tutorial, I decided to leave it as is. So in my get file, after fetching the user, I want to get my file name from a parameter. Where is that? File routes, this parameter. So I can get that by saying c.param and this file name, because the name of this parameter is file name. That's why this should match it as well here. Then I want to create this file path from that, which is going to be file path library.join, then upload there, then user.username, then this file name that I got. Then I'm going to check if that file exists in my directory. So if error equals to os.stat to give me the statistics about this file path, and error, no, I need to check here, not the error but the os dot is not exist. If that file does not exist, error. I'm basically checking if that error is file does not exist error. So if that is the case, let's say 404 not found, this status not found is 404, and it means that this item that we were requesting was not found. So the error message is going to be error file not found, something like that. And I want to return this file as an attachment. So C file, then file path, like that. And finally, we want to implement this delete file functionality. We similarly get the file name of the file that we want to delete here, and we will attempt to delete that file from our file path and from our database as well. So first of all, let's get those lines of code and paste it here. Then now we have our file name. I need to convert that file name to a secure file name by using this file path dot base, then file name. So let's get that file path dot base of this file name. After that, I want to say file record. I basically try to get that file record from my database, models.file, and if error equals to utils.db.where to filter this specific file document from my database, where user ID equals to this and file name equals to this. User ID is user.id, then the file name is file name that we have created here. I want to fetch that to my file record, and grab an error from that if error occurs. Error does not equal to nil, and I want to say c.json http.notfound, saying that such file was not found. So file not found is going to be my message, error message, then return here as well. I'm missing error here, which is silly. Then what? I first of all have to delete it from my file system, then I have to delete it from db. Those are the two things that I have to accomplish. So file path is gonna be not os but file path dot join, similarly to here, like this, and join my upload there with user.username, then file name. After that, attempt to delete that, os remove, then file path like this, and get the error from that. No, do not get the error. I want to check that error does not equal to nil, and not os dot is not exist error. Basically what I'm doing here is that if that file does not exist in that folder, I don't want to return the error message. I just want to proceed to deleting that from my database, because at this point I know for sure that this record of this file exists in my database. But here if I find out that it does not exist in my file system, I just want to skip that part and do not return an error message. C.json, let's copy that and paste it, remove one C from that, and the error message is going to be something like failed to delete file from disk, then delete it from db if error equals to utils.db.delete this file record. What is that? Yeah, file record, then error does not equal to nil. I want to say c.json, no, that error message that I have already copied. Error is going to be failed to delete file from db, something like that. And at the end I just want to say http.ok, status ok, then gin.h, file deleted successfully. Alright, I'm missing a message here as always. Message. Alright, now that should be it for our file controller. You can take a look at the code if you want. Like this. It looks something like this. Delete file, get file, then list all the files, then finally upload a file, which is the largest here. Alright, now it's time for us to run this file and test it out if we will be able to upload files correctly without encountering any kind of error. So before we write that, our server is still running. Before we run our project, I want to say go mode tidy, because as you can see we have some kind of warning here. So hopefully if I run go mode tidy, that warning should go away. Now it didn't. So anyways, let's run that, go run that, and it didn't result in any kind of errors, which is good. So now let's go to Postman and create a new blank collection for my file upload mechanism. So file, and here let's create a new request for what? First of all, I want to upload file. It is going to be post request. Also, I want to get that from here and paste that, and it should be file slash upload. If I try to run this now, it should say no file specified. So let's run it, and no, it says no access token specified because we are logged out apparently. Log in and try to send that request one more time, and no file provided. Yeah, that is exactly what we expected from here. Now let's create another request for list files, listing all the files that we have. It is going to be a get request, and it will be file slash all. Yeah, that should be all. File all, and let's send it, and it says page not found. Let's rerun it because we made a change, and if I try to run it, it says error fetching files. Why is that? I know why is that, because in our list files we are trying to fetch all the files. No, I don't know why is that. It is giving that error because we do not have a table called file in our database, because we have not specified to migrate that in our database as well. I was talking about this in the beginning of this video, so I have to specify my file model as well. And if I try to rerun this and try to send that one more time, it will give nothing here because I don't have any files related with the current user. That's why it gives empty list here. Alright, sweet. Now let's create one more for getting a file. So that path is going to be very similar, and here instead of specifying all or upload, I will specify the file, the name of the file that I uploaded. So let's say something like image.png. Let's try to get a file that we have uploaded that we have not uploaded, apparently called image.png. It will search for that file, and after it realizes that such file does not exist yet, it will say that it does not exist. Yeah, file not found. What is that? What is that? File and file name. File not found, page not found. Okay. The final thing is deleting a file. That is going to be delete method. Provide this the same thing and try to send it, and it says file not found. I don't know why it says this page not found here, but anyways, let's try to upload a file. Now you may ask, how do we upload a file in Postman? In Postman it is done very easily. We have to say form data in our body and say here file, then it should be this file. Then here you want to select a file from your file system. So I'll select one. I have already created those 4 images that I'll be working with in this tutorial. Let's first of all upload this brain logo file, and let's try to send that request, and it says file uploaded successfully. If we take a look at our folder structure, you can see that this uploads folder has been created automatically for us, and under that we have this test, which is our current username. Then if we take a look at that, we can see that image that we have just uploaded. So let's go ahead and upload something else. So let's delete that and upload, for example, this Arch Linux wallpaper. Let me rename that to something like Arch, so that it is easier to type. So let's upload that, send that request, and it has been uploaded. As you can see, this is that Arch. Then let's try to upload something else, for example, this desktop ninja or whatever. That's just random image that I found on my computer. And we have this desktop ninja here. Then let's go ahead with something else. This final nature image, and it has been uploaded as well. This sunset BG, as you can see here. What is that? I want to close that. Alright, now I have uploaded those 4 images. Let's try to list all the files that I have apparently. Yeah, as you can see, I have 4 of them, 4 images that I have uploaded with different fields specified correctly. My user ID, size, then file name, then path of it. Now let's try to get some files. If I try to get image.png, it will say file not found. Let's try to specify arch.png, png or jpeg, png. Let's send that, and we do have that arch image. This is very large and it does not fit here, but if I minimize that, you will be able to see that somehow. Now let's grab something else. I want to grab my brain logo.jpg, which is the logo of my YouTube channel. There you go, you can see that brain logo. Then let's grab that desktop ninja. So let's copy that long name from there and specify it here. And we do have that, as you can see. If I delete this G at the end, it should say file not found. Alright, final one, sunset bg bg.jpg send, and we grab that. This image is very large, that's why it took some time to fetch that, and it is very large, as you can see. Okay, now let's try to delete some files. Let's say I don't like this image and I want to delete that. So let's copy that name and provide it here. First of all, if I attempt to delete something like this, it will say not found. But if I specify some valid file name, it will delete that. So file deleted successfully, and that image is now gone from here. And if I try to fetch that from using this endpoint, provide my file name, it should say file not found. Alright, if I attempt to delete it one more time, it will say file not found 404. So yeah, that's good to go. With this on, this file upload system is working very well. We have implemented all the functionalities that we wanted to implement here, and we have also tested it out using Postman requests. This project is going to be pushed to GitHub, and I will leave the link to this repository of this project in the comment section down below, so you can access that and use it as a reference. By this, we can wrap up this video. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, and also write what kind of tutorial you want me to create next up. So I'll see you in the next video.